Before we start, close the door a bit and turn the volume up more than usual, and take a moment of silence like this, because what you're about to hear now is not something to be said out loud. It's not something you'll find in a book or in traditional advice. Let me ask you honestly, have you ever felt like you were present but not really there? That you talk, smile, try, but nothing moves inside? Maybe you sat in front of her and said all the right words. You laughed, you were respectful, polite, and yet nothing happened. And maybe in the same place, you saw someone else who didn't say half of what you said, but there was something strange about him, something that made her focus on him, laugh in a different way, gaze at him longer without realizing. At that time, I didn't understand, but I felt there was something missing in you, something no one taught you. I've been through that moment, not just once, many times. I remember a simple situation, a very ordinary place, a quiet cafe, soft music playing, people sitting, each in their own world. I was sitting with her. Everything was supposed to be perfect. The conversation flowed. The atmosphere was comfortable. Even she was smiling. But inside me, I felt a coldness, a strange kind of emptiness, as if everything was happening without any real feeling. I was watching myself as I spoke, thinking before every word, choosing phrases with excessive care. I'm trying to be perfect, and the more I tried, the more I felt it was drifting away, without moving. Strangely, it wasn't rejecting, but it wasn't attracted. At a certain moment, I fell silent, not because I ran out of words, but because I was tired of thinking. I lifted my eyes and looked at her, a gaze a little longer than usual, just half a second more, and I didn't say anything. She smiled, a slight smile, not out of courtesy, not an attempt to please. Just like that, it came out, and I saw something change, very simple, but clear. She fell silent too, and then looked down for a moment and quickly brought her gaze back to me, as if something happened without anyone saying anything. At that moment, I didn't understand exactly what happened, but I felt that this moment was more genuine than all the words I had said before it. From here, I started to notice strange things, very small things, but their impact was big in a way that can't be explained. Like you don't need to talk all the time, and that silence, when it comes at the right time, is stronger than any sentence. Like a simple glance, if it lingers a bit, says more than a long speech. And like the problem wasn't that I was too respectful. The problem was the fear behind the respect. I was acting as if I was walking on ground that could explode at any moment. Watching myself, I suppressed any feeling that could be misunderstood. And I expect that this will make me feel safer more. But what happened was the opposite. Nothing moves, and nothing ignites. Because the truth wasn't about a man who doesn't feel, nor about a man who hides everything. There is something much deeper than that, something that doesn't speak loudly, but is felt. I remember later on, I was in almost the same place, but this time, I was a bit different. Not because I had a plan, or because I learned moves, but because I decided not to think too much. She was talking about something very ordinary, something that happened to her in her day. I was listening, but not just to the words. I was observing her expressions, the way her eyes moved, how her voice changed when she got excited. And in a moment, I interrupted her with something very simple. I said a sentence that seemed ordinary, but it had another meaning. I didn't explain. I didn't clarify. I just said it and fell silent. And I saw her pause. For a second, maybe less. Then she said, "What do you mean?" But her smile said that she understood part, and the other part she let herself imagine. And here something strange happened. The conversation changed, not in words, but in feeling. There was a slight tension, not annoying, just present, as if there was something between us that no one was saying. And this thing is what made her come closer. Not physically, but her presence, her focus. She started to listen differently, look longer. And me? I wasn't doing anything clear. I was just present, in a way I wasn't before, without apology, without trying to hide everything. And here I started to understand that attraction is not in saying everything, nor in hiding everything. It's in the distance between them, in the middle, in the suggestion, in the moment that makes her wonder, does he mean what I understood? Or am I just imagining? And this question is the beginning of something that doesn't explain, but grows. Maybe now you're asking yourself, okay, do these little details really matter? Or am I exaggerating? Let me tell you something. I used to think they didn't matter. I thought you had to do something clear, say direct words, prove yourself. But every time I did that, I ended everything quickly. Because excessive clarity kills curiosity. And curiosity is the first spark of any attraction. I remember once I was sitting with her and a group, and there was one guy who didn't talk much, nor did anything remarkable. But every time he spoke, everyone fell silent. Not because he was loud or because he was trying to get attention. On the contrary, he was strangely calm. But his presence was heavy in a way that can't be described, and in a moment said a very simple sentence to her. It wasn't direct praise, nor anything obvious, just a comment, as if it were normal. But the way and the timing made the whole atmosphere change. She fell silent. A faint smile appeared on her face, and she didn't respond immediately, as if the sentence wasn't just words, it was a feeling. At that moment, I understood something important. Not everything that is said is heard in the same way. There are things that are felt, and most men get lost here. Either they hide everything and become cold, or they state everything and everything becomes overly clear and ends quickly. But there is a third type, a type that plays on the edge. It doesn't go beyond, but it doesn't retreat. It knows when to get closer and when to stop before the rhythm breaks. And this thing, I didn't learn overnight. It came from situations, from strange moments, from times I stayed silent instead of speaking, and from times I said half a sentence and left the second half for her. And that's where the real magic happens. Because she doesn't just react to what I said, she reacts to what I imagined. And imagination is always stronger. Let me ask you here, have you ever had a situation where you felt there was something between you and someone without anyone saying anything clear? If it happened, write in the comments. I want to know what the feeling was exactly, because this feeling, it's what most people ignore, and it's the same thing that makes the difference. The thing that makes you not just someone who passed through their life, but an idea, something that comes back to their mind for no clear reason. And maybe the strange thing in all of this is that you don't need to be the most handsome or the most talkative. You just need to understand the rhythm, understand when to speak and when to be silent, when to look and when to look away, when to give and when to leave space, because in that space, everything happens. And maybe the most dangerous thing I've discovered is that when you are too clear, you become easy. And the easy thing is rarely thought about much. But when you leave a part incomplete, an open part, her mind is what completes it in her own way, with her feelings. And here, you are no longer just a person. You have become an experience. And this is not easily forgotten. And maybe you're thinking now, can I really reach this stage? Or is this something that is born with certain people? Honestly, I used to think it wasn't for me. But everything changed when I stopped trying to be perfect and started to be real. Not complete, not 100% clear, but present. And this presence is the beginning of everything. And what's coming is deeper than you expect. Once upon a time, there was nothing special on the surface. Almost the same place, the same calm atmosphere, the same table that doesn't differ from others in any way. But the difference was in my feeling. I wasn't there to prove anything, nor to be the perfect person, not even to expect an outcome. I was just present. She was talking, calmly, in her spontaneous way that doesn't try to be attention-grabbing, yet leaves an impact without her noticing. I was listening, but this time I wasn't preparing a response in my mind. I wasn't thinking about what to say next. I was observing the small details that I had previously ignored. The way her hand moved when she explained something simple, how her voice suddenly calmed, how her eyes changed when she mentioned a situation that upset her. And in a moment, she became silent. Not because she had finished speaking, but as if she was waiting for something. She looked at me, a direct gaze, without a smile. And here, I had a choice. To speak quickly, break the silence, return things to the comfortable state, or let the moment take its time. And I stayed silent. 2 seconds, maybe 3, but they were longer than any words that could be said. She smiled again, a very slight smile, not an attempt to lighten the mood, but as if to say, I understand, without saying it. She moved her eyes a bit, and then lowered her gaze, and it was clear that something had shifted. Something has a direct name, and after that, there was a strange difference in everything, not in the words, but in the feeling beneath it. It was as if every sentence carried more weight, and every silence had meaning. I started to notice that when she spoke, she observed my reaction more closely. Not just whether I heard, but how I heard, how I looked, when I smiled, when I was silent, as if she was trying to understand something I said. And once, she said something very ordinary, something anyone could pass by without noticing. But I chose to respond differently. I didn't comment on the words themselves. I commented on her feeling while saying them. A simple sentence, but it was unexpected. She fell silent immediately after. She looked at me with a look of surprise, as if she was asking, "How did you notice that?" But she didn't say it. And here, something deeper happened. Not only did she hear me, she started to feel that I see her. Not the appearance, nor the obvious words, but the details that usually no one stops to notice. And this feeling was different. It was clear on her. Because after that, she didn't go back to speaking the same way. There was a slight hesitation, not fear, but awareness. Awareness that she had become exposed in a subtle way. And that didn't push her away. On the contrary, It brought her closer. The strange thing is that I wasn't trying to do this. I was just present in a more authentic way, without excessive filtering, without trying to be accepted in any way. And in a second moment, we were talking about something very ordinary. She laughed, but her laugh this time was different, a bit longer and calmer. She looked at me directly afterwards, as if she was waiting for a response. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. The same look that takes an extra part of a second. And then I turned my gaze away, calmly, without any rush. And here, the change happened, very clear, because she didn't turn her gaze away immediately. She kept looking, as if she was waiting for something that didn't happen. And this something is what created the tension that isn't annoying, but attracts. And after that, I started to notice something repeating, that she was trying to return to the same feeling, trying to recreate the moment in her own way, once with a question, once with a comment, once with a longer look than usual, as if she was saying without words, "Let's go back there." And this was different from any interaction I had experienced before, because most of the time, I was the one trying, I was the one talking, I was the one pushing, I was the one creating the atmosphere. But here, things started to flow without obvious effort, because something inside began to move, not because of a lot of words, but because of a missing feeling. Something wasn't complete, and this something is what made her think more. Once, she said a sentence to me. It was very simple. "You're a bit strange," and she said it with a smile, not sarcasm, nor criticism, but it was as if she was trying to describe something she didn't fully understand. I laughed and didn't respond directly. I let a moment of silence pass, and then I said, "Maybe," just like that. I didn't clarify nor explain, and I left the sentence hanging. I saw her, smiling in a deeper way, as if she got part of the answer, but not all of it. And that missing part was more important than any explanation I could give. After that, something strange happened in her presence. Every time she got closer than before, not in distance, but in attention, in focus, in the way she listens, in the way she looks, as if she was trying to understand me, or maybe trying to understand her feelings towards me. And in a moment, we were silent, a long silence, but comfortable. No embarrassment, nor attempts to break it, just present. And this silence was stronger than any dialogue, because it was full of questions, of thoughts, of things left unsaid. And here I understood something important, that you don't have to fill every moment. On the contrary, sometimes the best thing you can do is to leave it empty, because it won't stay empty. It fills up with its imagination, with its questions, with its feelings. And another time, I felt that the moment reached its peak. Everything was perfect. Anyone can say, "Keep going, be more, don't stop." But I did the opposite. I stopped, quietly. I said a very simple sentence, with no apparent depth. And then I said I had to go. She looked at me, a quick glance, with a hint of surprise, as if to say, "Now?" But she didn't say it. She smiled, the same light smile, and she stood up. It didn't take long. I didn't try to explain, nor did I give excuses. I just walked away. And the strange thing is that I felt the weight of the moment even while I was walking, as if something had been cut but not finished. And this feeling came back to me afterward, Not from me, from her. Because afterward, she started to initiate more, asking, opening topics, trying to return to the same rhythm, to the same feeling that suddenly stopped. And here it became clear that when you give everything, it ends quickly. But when you leave a part suspended, that part lives and grows inside her. And once she told me, "You disappear suddenly." I said, "Maybe," and I fell silent. She smiled, but it was clear she was thinking, not about the word, but about what was behind it. And that's what happened every time. Not the same words, but the meaning that wasn't said. And maybe that's the thing most people don't notice. That you don't always have to be clear, nor do you have to be coldly mysterious, but you can be in the middle, in the area that makes you feel and think and wonder. And every time, she would return to the same point, trying to understand, trying to get closer. Not because I asked, but because there was something inside her that was pulling her. Something that doesn't have a clear name, but it was there. And strangely, I myself couldn't fully control it. But I could feel the rhythm, when to speak and when to be silent, when to be close and when to take a step back. And this rhythm is what created everything. Not the words, nor the attempts, but the moments that were incomplete, and that made everything afterward open. Strangely, everything afterward didn't return to how it was before. Not because it suddenly changed, nor because something clear happened between us, but because the feeling itself changed. There became something light, present all the time, even in the simplest situations. Once we were standing, talking very normally, a simple topic with no depth. But suddenly, she went silent. Not because she ran out of things to say, but as if she remembered something, or maybe felt something. She looked at me, the same look that started to repeat, a look with a question, but without words. And here, I didn't rush. I didn't try to explain or bring the atmosphere back to normal. I let the moment be. A second, 2 seconds. Then she smiled. A light smile, as if she was saying, "I understand, but I don't have to say it." She took a slight breath and moved her hand spontaneously. Then she changed the subject. But the change wasn't an escape. It was a continuation in another way. And from here, I began to understand that there are things that can't be said directly. And if they are said, they lose their meaning. I remember another situation. It was in a different place, more people, louder voices. The atmosphere doesn't help with anything deep. And yet, there were moments that passed, as if everything disappeared in them. Very short moments, but clear, like when you suddenly look and find her looking at you at the same moment. Neither of you moves away quickly. 1 more second, maybe 2 seconds. Then, each one goes back as if nothing happened. But it did happen, and this thing was growing, quietly, without anyone noticing it directly. And once, she was talking to someone else, and I was a bit far away. But her eyes came back to me more than once. Not clearly, but enough for you to feel it. And this feeling was strange, because it wasn't built on a lot of words, nor on promises, nor on anything tangible, just on moments, small, incomplete. And in another moment, I was close to her, and the conversation was very ordinary. But suddenly, she fell silent. She looked at me and said, "There's something about you." And she fell silent, She didn't continue, as if the word didn't come out, or maybe she just didn't want to say it. She looked at her and fell silent. I didn't try to help her finish, nor did I ask her what. I just let the sentence stop in its place, and she smiled, a smile that had a hint of tension and a bit of curiosity. She said, "I don't know," and changed the subject. But that "I don't know" was clearer than any explanation, because it was honest, and at the same time, open. After that, something changed in her way. She became calmer sometimes, not because she lost interest, but as if she was thinking more, observing more, and at the same time, getting closer in her own way. Once with a word, once with a look, once with silence. And this silence had weight, not an empty silence, a silence where something was moving. In a moment, we were sitting almost without talking. Time was passing, but without a sense of boredom. And that in itself was strange, because most people need to fill every moment with words. But here, silence was enough, more than enough. She looked at me with a steady gaze, and then smiled, a calm smile, and said, "Strange, there are no words, and yet..." And she fell silent. She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to, because the meaning got through. And that's what changed, that things started to get through without being fully said. And once, I felt that the moment could last, it could grow, it could turn into something clearer. But I didn't do anything, nor did I try to push it. I just let the rhythm flow as it was, and she was moving with it, in her own way, without haste, without pressure. And in a moment, she said something very simple to me. "You don't try very hard." I looked at her and said, "Maybe," and I fell silent, and I fell silent. She smiled, like she understood more than I said. Later that night, in a calm silence, she looked at me and said, "Sometimes I feel like you," then paused, shook her head. Never mind. I didn't ask, because some things, if said, end. If left unsaid, they live. It wasn't clear, but it was real. A feeling without a name, without a reason, but one that leaves a mark and keeps returning. Some moments stay with us, not because they were big, but because they were incomplete. And maybe that's why some people don't leave your mind. They leave something behind that keeps growing every time you remember it.